What's good, Wizards fans, and welcome to the Locked On Wizards podcast. It's your host, the real Ed Oliver and Brandon Scott. Today we have special guest Troy Hailburton. We're going to talk about the Tommy Sheppard firing and what happens next with Bradley Beal, Porzingis, and Kuzma. Let's get started.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So thank you guys for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And today we have special guest Troy Hailburton, who gave us a little hint the last time he was on, saying that he didn't know Tommy Sheppard was going to be back. He did give us a little hint. How you feeling today, man?
Man, I feel vindicated. I'm like the Hulk Hogan gif, for all the haters that are out there. Look, I don't want anybody to ever question when I say something about this team. Sometimes you don't hit on everything. That's why you don't put report in front of every tweet. But when I tell you that I keep my boots on the ground with what's going on with this team, and if I say something, I didn't just pull it out of thin air. This stuff is real, and having sources within the organization is something that I definitely pride myself on.
Yeah, Troy Houdini, man. You heard it here first, man. You heard it here first. He came up with the news. So first question, I was going to say how surprised were you that Tommy Sheppard got fired, but I guess, you weren't very surprised.
I was a little bit surprised, though. I'm not going to lie. So I knew that his job was in jeopardy. And the thing is, if we want to go through, talking about Tom and his tenure with the Wizards, man, I started hearing rumblings last year when, with the whole monumental basketball thing. I think that once you started having guys started leaving the organization last year, I think that there was a little bit of smoke around there being a little bit of tension within the Wizards organization. And so, I think that Tommy definitely wasn't self-aware of the things that were going on within the organization because, we're going to talk about this, later on. But, what he did at the trade deadline by not doing anything, I thought that was a guy who was very comfortable with his position and coming back to the organization. And, I just don't think that he really saw this coming. So I was a little bit surprised. But like I said, I had been hearing that for well over a year.
Right. Yeah, I know Sashi Brown was a part of the staff. I remember he left.
When Sashi Brown left, that was my first indicator that it wasn't all right in monumental basketball.
Right. And in his presser, I know Hoop District, they asked him, did he talk to Tommy Sheppard about coming back? And
he? Myself? No. Why would that be a question?
Right. And Tommy was so sure of himself that he was coming back. But the timing was a little weird. What sense the presser did you think made Ted come to that decision? Was it them just not making the playoffs, or was it, seeing other players play better, like Rui, another Washington Wizards player, go and leave and play better? What was something that you think flipped the switch for Ted Leonsis?
Tommy didn't have a plan. Yeah, he probably sat him down and had a meeting to ask what the plan is, and Tommy didn't have one. He never had one. And that was the thing. I think that he was allowed to kind of skate by without having any accountability of actually having a concrete plan or vision for the future. And we just allowed his silver tongue to kind of spin everybody in this cycle of just never ending mediocrity. And he never had a plan. And so I think once Ted finally came to the realization that this guy might not have a plan, and maybe a couple of those Rui Hachimura games, he probably said, enough is enough.
100%. So I did want to talk about the reports from Tom Lavero as well, with how you I'm not sure how familiar you were with those reports.
I saw. I haven't heard what Tom Lavero has heard, that Ted has fallen out of favor with Bradley Beal. I haven't heard that, so I'm not saying that his report isn't true. I'm just saying that I haven't heard that. So as far as my understanding, I think that Ted is probably more concerned about shelling out, being close to the luxury tax, and not making the playoffs than he is about just specifically being upset with Bradley Beal. I think it's just an overall encompassing thing that they're paying too much money for them to not be making the play-in tournament.
Right, that makes 100% sense right there. So we're going to get more into talk about Bradley Beal and Kyle Kuzma's future and Porzingis, how this affects them. But before we do get into that, today's episode is brought to you by Ibotta. Grocery, school shopping, and getting a little something for yourself, you're already doing it. So why not get cash back for it with Ibotta? Watching your closet grow after purchasing all of the season's latest trends. How about also watching your cash back grow with each purchase with Ibotta? We're always throwing money at something: kids' school supplies, a new house project, the list goes on. It's time to stop spending your hard-earned money without getting anything in return. Enter Ibotta. You can earn cash back on every shopping trip. Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items, from produce to personal care to pantry goods. Either link your loyalty account or upload your receipt after you shop and get your cash back. It's that easy. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 for just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKED when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and use code LOCKED. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKED. Today's episode also is brought to you by Ultimate Pro Basketball GM. Please download this app and test it out to speak to any all personal experience. Ultimate Pro Basketball GM is the coolest game I've played in a long time. I've always thought I could be a great NBA GM. As it turns out, it's not all that easy. If you had the same thought and have fantasized about managing your own basketball franchise, go and download Ultimate Pro Basketball GM right now. This game allows you to manage every strategic aspect of a franchise, playing through seasons and leading your franchise and fans to glory as you build a historic dynasty in the simulation you're responsible for. All this in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Pro Basketball GM is completely free and playable offline. Play on the go as you want and when you want to. Locked On listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo Locked On in the game store. So make sure to check it out. To download the game, just visit probasketballgm.com, scan the code, or look it up on the app stores. That's probasketballgm.com, Ultimate Basketball GM. Start your dynasty today. All right, Brandon.
Yes, sir. So let's talk about Bradley Beal a little bit. As you know, yes, sir. So with the no trade clause, if he decides to waive that and ask out, what are the top 3 destinations you can see if we indeed had to move Bradley Beal?
That's a tough question, Brandon. I don't think it's quite time for Bradley Beal to be requesting a trade at this point. I think we're still a year away from that. I'm hearing that, this is weird. I'm hearing that Brad really wants to get that Wizards all-time scoring leading record. And he's like 200 points away from it. And it's really, so I think if nothing else, he wants to come back and get this record. So I think that this relationship will last at least another year. But if I were to look at teams that I think that would be interested, I think that the Brooklyn Nets would probably be a team that would be interested because they have an ownership group who has invested so much money in them, as far as, everything within their organization. They're spending a lot of money, and, they have the assets to go out and probably trade for a quote unquote, superstar player. So I think that would be my first option to look at. I think that you always got to consider the Lakers because they still managed to keep one of those draft picks they had, and they have some young talent that they might be able to shell out. They seem to have a great trading relationship with the Wizards over the last couple of years. And then lastly, I think I would probably look at the Clippers too because they're getting ready to be moving into a new building in the beginning of the 24 season. And so whether that means maybe trading Paul George or maybe trying to make one more run, packaging together everything else they got. But the thing is about the Clippers, they actually have, young players and young assets. So if they had to package everything they could to try to go out and get a third star to pair with Paul George and Kawhi. I think that might be an option. That for right now, I think those are three solid choices. But I don't think there's going to be a lot of people beating down the door to try to get Bradley Beal, unfortunately.
Now, looking at his relationship with Tatum, do you think Boston could ever be a destination, or you think Boston would quickly hang up the phone?
Yeah, I don't think that Boston is interested in trying to trade Jalen. Although I think that their feet might be put to the fire when Jaylen Brown's contract is getting ready to come up, because if he tells them he's out, then they got to get something for him. So I think that that's something to look at. But from my understanding, that Boston was never really serious about trying to trade to get Bradley Beal. I think that they're just happy with what they have so far.
Got you. So you're on an assumption that one more year with Bradley Beal going forward. So assuming that,
I feel very safe and confident saying that it'll be one more year, because, like I said, for multiple reasons. I think that it'll look better for Brad if he gives one more year and then asks out. Like if he leaves right now, it'll kind of almost be like bailing. And I think that would not go over well within like the Wizards community, the Wizards fandom. And I think all of that stuff kind of matters to him, that he wants to, even if he does leave, I think he wants to be remembered as, a great, and be able to come back here and kind of put in a little claim to the city. And I think that it's important to him, like I said, to get that Elvin Hayes scoring record. He's less than 200 points away, like I said earlier. I think that's as crazy as that sounds, I think that that's an actual thing.
No, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, he was very upset about his 2K rating. He was upset about the All-Star game. He was upset about not making the All-NBA. So accolades are very important to him. Just like, he's not the only one, but, we've seen him be very vocal on social media about not getting a good 2K rating. So I'm not surprised that that's something that he wants to certainly get. So, but do you have any inklings that Ted is actually going to let the new GM, like what if the GM does come in like how Bob Myers did and they wanted to trade Monte Ellis, or how Masai Ujiri finally gave up on DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry and just made a trade with DeMar? Do you think that Ted is going to give the new GM any chance to trade any of these guys like Kuz, Porzingis, or Bill, or that he really wants the new GM to run it back again?
Well, I think the Kuzma and KP are definitely on the table for possibly getting traded. Like, I think that there is no like I don't know, allegiances like with as far as like the front office was negotiating contracts with both of them, and the guy who was doing those negotiations is now out the door. And so I think that when you look at Brad, like that, Brad has that history here, and so I think that there will be more consideration as far as trying to make it work with him. I think those other guys are probably viewed as assets, and if the they can't come to some type of agreement, then I think that they very well could be on the move. Now, I think with Porzingis, I think he's probably the person who gets affected by this the most. I think that there's going to be a market for Kuzma, and because he's not going to be making but Porzingis has a $36 million option. Like, I think that it'll be tough for him to find $36 million out there on the free agent market. And so he might be looking at a situation where, if he was in the middle of negotiating a longer term deal, that if that doesn't come to fruition, his best course of action might be to pick up that option. Whereas Kuzma, I think that there could be teams out there that could, move some things around and get $20 million in salary cap space to get Kuzma. So, I think that, they're probably, but again, like, they're always signing trade options. But to answer your question, as far as what Ted will let the GM do, I think that really kind of all depends on who comes in as GM. And so I know we're going to go over, a few names that, that people have been, throwing out there. But, and when it comes to Bradley Beal, one more quick thing. I think that it'd probably be best to have him play again, because I don't think his value is as high as it would be to get an optimal return on Bradley Beal at this point. I think it would be best for him to come out there and show teams that he can play again, so that you can get an extra first round pick or two. Because right now, I don't think that you're going to be getting that, that major package for Bradley Beal that they probably could have gotten 2 or 3 years ago.
Right, yeah. Brad he stopped playing before the All-Star game, so the injuries, he's missed a couple games, so that's against him.
And he's missed more than a couple games over the last 2 seasons.
Yeah,
He's played games. It's more than a couple.
He played. Yeah, he played 50 games. He played 50 games this year, 40 games in 2022. So yes, he has missed a numerous.
Yeah, of a possible 162, he's played 90 games. So yeah, that's not.
Tommy Sheppard said he was entering his prime.
If I'm gonna be giving up 4 or 5 first round picks for him, I need to see the guy play on the court, 25 games in a row at least, something.
Right, and we're gonna get a quick word from Brandon. We're gonna talk about Wes after the break.
Yes, sir. Before we move on and talk about Wes, tonight's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Are you buying tickets to your favorite events but it shouldn't be stressful, right? Game Time is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals and last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over tickets and getting hyped for the fun you will have. Game Time is a place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals and tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Game Time guarantee means you always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section in a row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. It's the fastest growing ticket app in the country for a reason. Get images of your seat before you buy so you know exactly where your point of vision is. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps and you're set. Tickets are sent directly to your phone, so never have to dig through your email. Standard tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Tonight's episode is also brought to you by Nissan Aria. And if I'm going to compare the Nissan Aria to the most electric player of the week, I'm going to make that player Russell Westbrook. All right, so how do you compare it? They're electric, brilliantly fierce, fiercely elegant, stunningly powerful, elegantly powerful. Drivers in duality, a combination of fierceness and elegance, beautiful but strong. The perfect SUV crossover. The 2023 Nissan Aria packs a pin you to your seat, power, and premium intelligence all in one electric vehicle. The all-new, the all-electric 2023 Nissan Aria, the electric vehicle for people who love to drive. Shop today at nissanusa.com.
That makes me want to get a Nissan right now, but yeah, so Wes Unseld Jr. was brought back. What are your thoughts on that? What does that kind of tell you about, the new GM having control over everything? Because typically you bring in a new GM, you would want them to have the keys to the car, Nissan, whatever, you want them to have the keys to the car and let them pick their guy, let them pick their head coach. So what were your thoughts on that whole transaction with bringing Wes Unseld Jr. back?
Well, I mean, you're bringing logic and reasoning to a situation where you're dealing with the Wizards, where they've shown you for decades that they have no sense of logic or reasoning. So I think that the decision that they made, and they put that announcement out there, and they put it out there with several different people. So we got to believe it that that they want Wes to come back. Tommy was saying that beforehand, and this seems to be the same message afterwards. To be honest, I think that. I mean, his father's bust hangs in the hall. It sits in the hallway of the arena. I think that has bought him this extra year. His father's jersey hangs in the rafters. They have a bust statue of him hanging or sitting in the arena hallway. I think that his father's name has bought him another season, and I don't think that the new GM. I think that he'll be okay with that, knowing that if it doesn't go left, that he can always get rid of him next year. So I think that, it doesn't make any sense as far as like you're saying, Ed, in most situations, a new GM would come in and be able to bring in his own people and make his own hires. But that's not something that, the Wizards are, famous for doing the things that make sense. So, but like I said, I think that his father's legacy has pretty much earned him this lame duck year. And it's up for him to, see if he can sink or swim.
Yeah, I hate to call it a lame duck year, but I think it is. I think it is too. It just
You
reminds
gotta
me.
call it like that's the thing about
Yeah,
Wizards. We gotta start calling stuff what it is. Now, I hate to call it a lame duck year, but it is what it is. Right?
yeah, it is. It just feels like the quarterback situation when a new coach comes in, new owner or new GM, and they got to play that quarterback for 1 year. They don't really like the quarterback, but he's here, so we got to see what the quarterback can do. And if we don't like him, then we'll trade the quarterback that was drafted in the first round last year. So that's just what it kind of feels like. Were you gonna say
Exactly
something?
what it is. And so, I mean, I think that Wes unsaid, he's been around this business long enough. He understands that. He understands that he hasn't been the best over these 2 years. And some in his defense, some would say that how can you coach when you don't have any you don't have any personnel to go out there and actually get the job done. So, we'll see. Like I personally haven't been that impressed with his tenure as the Wizards coach so far. But like I said, I'm curious to see what he can do with a different grouping of personnel. I mean, if they run it back like they did last year, then maybe could see if he can get this group to buy in more. There are a lot of different story angles to look at here. But yeah, no, I think that he's definitely bought himself at least until Christmas.
I mean, I'll say this about West, man. I think it's a tough situation he came into. I'm gonna say this because being a first-time head coach and going to a situation where you have established veterans and yet you have young guys who are fighting for playoff spots. And I'll say this: he probably had an easier job this year than he had last year because people were literally fighting for minutes. But I think that maybe if you put him in a situation like a rebuild where the GM can kind of find the pieces to implement his defensive system, I'm kind of intrigued to see how he does with a young cast. But I mean, do you think that that's where his success may lie, or do you see that he could be successful with this veteran core going forward?
Does he have a defensive system? I'm not sure. I honestly, when we start evaluating some of the stuff, like, I mean, the guy blew a 35-point lead. Like that was last season. I'm talking about the season before last. This past season, they were blowing 20-point leads left and right. Like, I mean, that's X's and O's coaching. Like, we can get on personnel as much as we want. I mean, 35-point lead is the second largest lead blown in the history of the association. Like, I mean, this guy's breaking records out here as far as bad coaching. And so, like, I think that, like he's got to come out here and really show that, number one, that he can maintain control over a locker room. When you look at, that whatever the hell happened between Kyle Kuzma and Spencer Dinwiddie and the rest of the guys on that team, like that locker room blew up last year. And he just, to me, from my understanding, just sat back like a babysitter and let it all happen. And so, to me, like that's beyond even the X's and O's of what's going on with the team. So, like, to me, he's got to come out and show that he can be the leader of men first and foremost. Then let's see if he knows what he's doing as far as the X's and O's and the basketball stuff. And can he stop blowing the big leads? Like, these are three things that he's got to have on his whiteboard going into this all season.
Yeah, 100%. They led the league in blowing leads of having 15 plus or more. Me and Brandon have talked about him being a leader of men, like you said, last year. Guys fighting in the locker room, and the report that the prisoners were running the asylums, et cetera, with all that stuff. But my last question before we wrap up this part one, before we get to part two with GM candidates, if there was one move, one draft pick, one trade, which move was the worst of Tommy Sheppard that you think led to his demise?
Well, clearly, drafting Denny Avdia over Tyrese Hailburton. I mean, that decision right there cost him his job. Like, because if he drafts Tyrese Hailburton, he's still here. The Wizards probably make the playoffs this season, and everything is you actually have a vision of a foundation to be able to move forward. That decision was the worst decision, and it cost him his job. Like, if we're being honest, like, I know that, Tyrese has come out and said it, but I've been saying it since the whole time, that was the pick. He was getting picked by the Wizards. And then all of a sudden he wasn't, because honestly, the Wizards got screwed by teams not drafting Denny. If somebody would have took Denny in front of them, we would have Hailburton, and everything would be different. But because Denny fell to them, Tyrese is an international scout. I mean, and Tommy's an international guru as far as scouting. Then he has to go with Denny, and now everything is different. And now he's out of a job. But don't cry for him, though. You know, his checks will still be cashing. So don't shed not one tear for Tommy Sheppard.
Oh yeah, we definitely won't. We know Tommy will probably get another job somewhere as a scout or something like that.
Get a job. He can get paid to not do nothing. He can just chill.
But yeah, Troy, we want to thank you for coming on for part one. I just want to make sure you guys check out NBA Game Time and make sure that you make Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. Now, every day is tomorrow on the show. We're going to have Troy Hailburton talking about GM candidates. So we just want to thank you guys for listening.